Hello, and welcome to the 60th anniversary of the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area, looking back and leaning in. I'm Laura Gray, co-chair with Cindy Deemer. Cindy and I are both second-generation League members. My mother Gladys is a charter member, and as kids, my sister and I looked up to her. We'd often find ourselves at her desk playing League with her notebooks and papers and binders. And here I am today, a member. Cindy's mother, Shirley Hayes, was one of the first members of League and integral in keeping League moving forward in spite of early challenges. We have a couple of special things to share with you today. Liz Ringstad, one of the charter members of League, provided us with an oral history of her life and League prior to her passing away. Second, our remaining charter member shared her memories with us as we began to plan our year-long celebration. I am so pleased to be able to share Nedra Martz's memories with you. Memories: the early years of the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area. Written by Nedra Martz. My first memory of discussions about starting a League of Women Voters in Ripon was in 1960, usually in conversations after dinner parties. Most of the women were young wives and at-home mothers or school teachers who wanted to become better informed on government issues and to effect positive change. As a student in Illinois, I had been a member of a college league sponsored by a local League of Women Voters, so I offered to contact Helen. Helen Rose was the state board member who was in charge of new leagues. I expected her to send information. However, she immediately phoned me. By the time we hung up, I had been directed to set up a meeting which she would attend and lead. You did not say no to Helen. At the meeting, Helen explained that a provisional league would need to be formed. To gain league status, we would need to meet specific requirements, such as having a nonpartisanship policy, a constitution, and bylaws. We would need to hold regular board and membership meetings and to participate in financial support of the league. Our first step was to appoint a chair who would find interested women to fill the board positions. Somehow or another, we managed to do that and to begin regular board meetings and study meetings. Our first provisional president was Barbara Redford. She only served a few months before her husband accepted a job in Illinois. Frances Hooker, wife of college professor, accepted the position. She faced a challenging time. Although we had a good schedule of interesting study meetings, attendance began to decline. Some local residents, both men and women, questioned whether our nonpartisanship policy would be followed, whether women should be involved in governmental matters, and whether too many wives of professors and public school teachers were members. This last criticism made us especially thankful for women like Shirley Hayes, wife of a local lawyer, and Verna Tinkham, wife of a local banker, who not only joined but also attended meetings and supported the league to their friends. Still, morale was low. This was, as Shakespeare wrote, the winter of our discontent. Our president resigned. She wondered if we should disband. Once again, the phone rang. Of course, it was Helen Rose, confident and positive as always. Helen was adamant that we continue, but we needed a president. Ruth Powers and I agreed to start looking. Among the possible candidates was the name of Elizabeth Ringstad. I had met her at a church meeting and was impressed by her thoughtful comments. On a sunny but cold afternoon, Ruth and I went to her house on Belleville Street, explained the current situation, and asked if she could take this on. She said yes. From that moment on, I knew our league would become a reality. Liz was intelligent, hardworking, friendly, strong, and steady in times of conflict. The first president, following our provisional period, was Beverly Callenbrink. She had moved to Ripon from Beaver Dam, where she had been a league member. Her experience helped us with local, state, and national studies. I was the second president, and Ruth Powers was the third. These were busy years. In 1963, Naola Hannaford and her committee wrote and published Survey of the City, which later was regularly updated as Know Your Town. In addition to providing information to the general public, many businesses distributed these booklets to new and potential employees. In 1964, the finance campaign, which I chaired, not only met but exceeded its goal. The State League chose Ripon to represent Wisconsin in a display of successful financial campaigns featured at the National Convention. The voter service forums began and quickly became a part of Ripon's election activities. By 1966, our league had 47 members. The League of Women Voters of Ripon was now part of the Ripon community. Written by Nedra Martz, December 2021.
I'm here with Liz Ringstad, and we're going to talk about the founding of the League of Women Voters in Ripon.
Yes.
And I wanted to say that, Liz, you are a very special person to me, because when I was a young housebound mother with little kids, you took me under your wing and we did radio interviews together, and I worked on voter service with you at the time.
Yes, I guess you did.
Yes, and I'm very grateful. It was a wonderful way to get out of the house and be involved. My husband had said, you're a college graduate. You probably want to do more than scrub floors and take care of the little kids. So.
Well, I think that our husbands were alike in that. They all knew we were educated about equally with them. We all were alike in that we were doing all this unpaid work in the home, which was expected of women of our class. We wanted to make it clear that we were interested in politics, but not interested in supporting any one political party. We were interested in looking at issues, things that concerned us, whether it was something about the local schools or something about the city council or something about the county board, or whether it was something about the whole state. You had to prevent a review of the city that you lived in. And so we did a big study of the city here. And do you have a cover of one of our annual meeting books?
I have a cover of one that dates back to 1966-67.
It doesn't matter. On the front of it is an oak tree that has since been cut down. But it was that old oak on that square, remember? And
Signal oak.
what?
Signal oak.
Yes. And so that was the sort of the sign for our league. And yes, we were all sorry when it came down, but it's still on the front cover of all our annual meeting books. Okay, when I was able to vote you for the first time, you had to be 21 years old. And I was teaching in a little town, and I was there 5 days a week teaching their kids. And when it came election day, I went to the polls, and they said, "No, we can't let you vote here." Well, I said, "Why not? I work here. It's where I earn my living." They said, "Yes, but you go home every weekend to your parents' home, and that's where you're really living." I said, "No, that isn't. That's where I kind of go for a vacation on the weekend. But I earn my living right here, teaching your kids." I don't earn a cent back in my hometown. I only earn it all here. I should be able to vote here, and they refused to let me vote. And I was all excited because it was a national election, and I knew exactly who I wanted to vote for president, and I wasn't going to be allowed to vote. And so it was very disappointing. And I knew there was such a thing as a League of Women Voters that registered people to vote, so that if you went to vote, you were registered in advance. And that happened here in Ripon too. And we have good voter registration here. And I rely on it for elections year after year. Wisconsin was lucky. One of our U.S. senators who had supported the women in trying to get the right to vote, changing the Constitution, he was in Washington. So we just telegraphed him and said the legislature just passed the constitutional amendment. And so he immediately reported that to the Senate that it had been passed by the Wisconsin Assembly. Now, Illinois did theirs the same day, but they had to put someone on a fast train to Washington, D.C. from Chicago. And when they got there, they reported it, but it was after Wisconsin. So it was these Midwest states out here that passed the constitutional amendment. Illinois and Wisconsin the same day, and soon after Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, all of those states out here in the Midwest were the first to give women the right to vote. But I think it was the way that women worked together on the farms and everything in the Midwest. They were very important on the farm. I can remember my grandmother and my great-grandmother, how important they were, just as important as their husbands, to running that business. And so so I can see that's the way all these rural towns were. She was born here in Ripon, Wisconsin, and she was like so many others, very well educated, a teacher. She assisted. You're talking with a league that was founded back in 1920-21. Yeah, we had a league here earlier, and then by the 1930s, it had fallen apart. And then we were reorganizing a league in the early 30s. Really, the first League of Women Voters was founded in New York City. And it was founded by very socially prominent, very wealthy women. Eleanor Roosevelt was a friend of these people, and they founded a League of Women Voters in New York City. And they were prominent enough so the New York Times would pick their name up and pay attention to this group because they were both wealthy and well-educated. And of all backgrounds, there were Christians and Jews alike in that group. And they founded the first League of Women Voters there in New York City. And but the leagues we founded out here in the small towns were not like that. In the big cities, yes. Now, Ripon League is interesting. Now that we have men in the league, we have a larger percentage of men than any other league in Wisconsin, I believe. And they're not all husbands of league members. We've always had other male members, and we still do, and currently are getting new ones again. And so people say, why don't you just call it the League of Voters then, if you're going to have men too? There's a good reason. If we do that, our name is copyrighted, League of Women Voters. So everything that we have done over the years would be lost, and anybody could pick up that name and use it and be exactly opposite of what the League has always stood for. So we don't change our name, even though we have male members now. Well, first of all, if we're going to study something, we look at the issue. And I remember when we studied the organization of city government, boy, did we work on that. Every one of the city committees, somebody went and sat at several of their meetings, then reported back to the league saying what their purpose was, how well we thought they were following their purpose, and we did that for every single committee and board in the city of Ripon. And yeah, that was a workout.
Yes.
So when we finished that, we understood how our city government worked better than we ever had before. And we were looking on the question of having a mayor and city council as the simplest one, or if we were going to hire someone beside a mayor to help with administration of the city. And so we were talking about getting a city administrator. And so we went at it, and we got that job authorized, and we hired our city administrator. And they were trained really to work with all the mayors. So it was very hard for those administrators to work with a mayor the way we wanted them to. But they did. They came around and they did it. And it worked out very well for us here because we had the professionally trained administrator, and the mayor usually didn't have any special training for something like that.
It was just one more thing I wanted to stress is that when we would study an issue and come to consensus and advocate, and I'm thinking right now about Ripon, we did things like advocate for the city administrator position, but we also advocated for a taxi system in Ripon.
Oh yes, that's right.
So
We've done so many things over the years that you forget.
Mhm.
And The yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
Our voter service programs that we have really focus often on encouraging people to register to vote. Also, we have candidate forums.
Yes, oh, the candidate forums are important, especially for our local candidates, school board, city council, mayor, county board. Those are the local important elections. And so if there are 2 or more candidates for an office, we will invite them in and ask them questions, and they'll all have to answer similar questions. We never endorse, we never say the league is for this candidate. No, we just get the questions answered, and sometimes it's recorded like this and played over again on the local radio station, and sometimes it's recorded and the information printed in the Ripon paper. So we have been fortunate over the years in that the radio station and the newspaper have both been very cooperative.
While we never endorse a candidate, we might support a new law that fits into something we studied and came to consensus on. We might support an issue because we've studied it.
But we never support an individual or a political party.
You could just talk a little bit about how the League of Women Voters has evolved since the early 1960s, and now we're in the next century. And
I'm very proud of this league because it has faltered at times, but then revived again. And some of it from our longtime members like Cindy and myself, and some it's from new people that have come in and given us the push that we needed. But right now we have, I think, which is 52 members, did you say?
I think it's 52 right now.
And that's good size for a town this size. But
And now we reach out into Waushara County and Green Lake County. So that's why the name changed, League of Women Voters of the Ripon area.
yes, now we expanded. We have members in Green Lake County and even a couple in Waushara County. I used to have the privilege of doing a regular radio interview with not just candidates, but people that were actually in office. And I was privileged to interview U.S. senators, congressmen, right and left, and plus all kinds of local officers. And so that was a real experience for me. And I didn't know if anyone was listening to my interviews or not. And I was at a holiday dinner across the driveway at Paul Jeffrey's home one year, and there was a retired professor from the college there, and he laughed. He said, "Oh yes, we all listen to you over at the college." And he said, because it was the only way we knew to get these people to tell the truth. When this nice lady came up and asked them what they thought about this or that, they'd tell me. They were honest, and I was honest with them in their questions. I was telling them that these answers wouldn't be used against them, or, they were just to tell whatever they thought. And so, yeah, I enjoyed doing those interviews so much. Every single person should vote in every single election, but they should know what they're voting for and why they're voting. So many people vote against their own interests because they don't understand what the various candidates are standing for, and they vote against their own interests. And that's so sad, but all we can do is to keep on trying to inform people. And that's one of the chief jobs of the League of Women Voters.